Subscribe to Cheating Tales Lab. Now let's begin. The rain hammered against the windshield as Arthur Blanchard navigated through evening traffic, his knuckles white against the steering wheel. At 72, he'd thought he'd seen everything the world could throw at him. 30 years as a federal prosecutor, another decade consulting for Fortune 500 companies on corporate litigation. He'd built empires and torn them down with equal precision. But the phone call he'd received 2 hours ago had shaken something loose in his chest that he hadn't felt since his wife died. "Dad." Colin's voice had been barely above a whisper. "I need you." His son never asked for help. Not when his wife Kelly died 3 years ago. Not when he lost his architectural firm. Not when Arthur knew. God, he knew that Colin was drowning. Pride ran in the Blanchard blood like iron, and it had cost them both more than either would admit. Arthur pulled into the hospital parking lot, the neon emergency sign casting red shadows across empty spaces. Memorial General. He'd donated enough money to this place to have a wing named after him, but tonight he wasn't here as a benefactor. The automatic doors slid open, and the antiseptic smell hit him immediately, that unique mixture of disinfectant and desperation that every hospital wore like a uniform. The main lobby was nearly empty. A security guard nodded at him from behind a desk. Arthur moved past the information kiosk, past the closed gift shop with its wilted flowers behind glass, following the signs toward the pediatric wing. His Italian leather shoes clicked against the linoleum, each step echoing in the fluorescent silence. He found Colin in a waiting room on the 4th floor. Arthur stopped in the doorway, feeling something crack inside his ribs. His son sat slumped in a plastic chair, elbows on his knees, face in his hands. Colin's clothes were rumpled, the same button-down shirt he'd worn to Kelly's funeral, now stained and wrinkled. His hair, once meticulously styled, hung limp and greasy. A beard, patchy and unkempt, covered his jaw. He looked like he'd aged 20 years and 3. "Colin." His son's head snapped up. Red-rimmed eyes met Arthur's, and for a moment, neither spoke. Colin's face was gaunt, hollowed out by something deeper than grief. "Where's Emma?" Arthur asked, forcing his voice steady. "His granddaughter. 7 years old. The only light left in Colin's world after Kelly's death." Colin's laugh came out broken. "Her mother's parents won't let me see her." He stood, swaying slightly. "She's been sick for 3 weeks. Pneumonia. They said," his voice cracked. "They said if I come near her room, they'll have me arrested." Arthur felt cold fury settle into his bones. Ernie and Donna Dawson. He'd met them exactly 3 times. At Colin's wedding, at Emma's christening, and at Kelly's funeral. Each time, he'd sensed something rotten beneath their pleasant suburban facade. On what grounds? They got an emergency restraining order. Colin pulled a crumpled paper from his pocket. "Says I'm a danger to Emma. That I'm unstable. He couldn't finish. Arthur took the document, scanning it with practiced eyes. Judge Morrison's signature. A hack who'd been elected on his tough-on-crime platform and family values rhetoric. The order was temporary, good for 2 weeks, but it could be extended. The allegations were vague but damning. Erratic behavior, substance abuse, inability to care for a minor child. "Have you been served with anything else?" Colin shook his head. "I came as soon as I heard Emma was admitted. Donna was in the hallway. She saw me and started screaming. Said I'd done this to Emma, that I was killing her just like I killed Kelly." His voice dropped to a whisper. "Security escorted me out. I've been sitting here for 6 hours, Dad. My daughter is sick, and I can't even hold her hand." Arthur studied his son. Beneath the exhaustion and despair, he saw the little boy who'd scraped his knee learning to ride a bike, the teenager who'd stayed up all night building model buildings, the young man who'd fallen in love with Kelly Dawson at a coffee shop on a rainy Tuesday. That man was still in there, buried under 3 years of systematic destruction. "Stay here," Arthur said. He walked to the nurse's station with the kind of confidence that came from decades of commanding courtrooms. The nurse on duty looked up, her name tag reading Carolina Boone, RN. "I need to see the supervising physician for Emma Blanchard," Arthur said. Immediately, Carolina's eyes flickered with recognition. She'd seen Colin dragged out earlier. "Sir, I can't." Arthur placed his business card on the counter. "My name is Arthur Blanchard. Emma is my granddaughter. I'm also the primary donor for the Blanchard Center for Pediatric Care, which, if I'm not mistaken, is where we're currently standing." He kept his voice level, professional. "I'm not here to cause problems. I'm here to ensure my granddaughter receives the care she needs with her father present, as is his legal right. There's a restraining order, which I've reviewed. Arthur pulled a leather folder from his coat. I've also reviewed Emma's medical records, which I'm authorized to access as her medical proxy. You'll find the documentation here, signed by both parents 3 years ago when Emma was born. He spread the papers across the counter. Medical power of attorney, signed by Colin and Kelly Blanchard, granting Arthur decision-making authority in case both parents were incapacitated or unable to fulfill their duties. It was standard for any family with significant assets, something Arthur had insisted on. Carolina studied the documents, then looked up at him. The Dawsons said they have custody. Show me the court order granting them custody. Silence. Carolina glanced at another nurse, an older woman with steel-gray hair. There isn't one, Arthur said quietly, because Colin Blanchard has never had his parental rights terminated. He's never been charged with abuse or neglect. That restraining order is based on allegations, not facts. And as Emma's medical proxy, I'm exercising my right to determine who has access to her care. Her father will be present. If the Dawsons object, they can file an emergency motion with the judge, but until then, hospital policy follows legal documentation, not hysterics. The older nurse leaned in, reading the papers. These look legitimate. They are. Arthur met Carolina's eyes. Please notify security. Colin Blanchard is to be granted access to his daughter's room. Ernie and Donna Dawson are to be escorted from the pediatric wing. If they refuse to leave voluntarily, you have my permission to call the police. I'll be filing a harassment complaint. Carolina picked up the phone. 10 minutes later, Arthur stood in the hallway as 2 security guards approached Colin. His son looked up, fear flashing across his face. Mr. Blanchard, the older guard said, his tone respectful. We're here to escort you to your daughter's room. Colin's eyes found Arthur's. Dad, go see your daughter, Arthur said. As Colin followed the guards down the hallway, Arthur heard shouting from the other direction. Donna Dawson burst around the corner, her face flushed with rage. She was a thin woman in her late 60s, dressed in expensive casual wear that screamed country club membership. Behind her, Ernie Dawson lumbered along, a heavy-set man with a red face and eyes too small for his head. You can't do this, Donna shrieked, charging toward Arthur. He killed my daughter. He's going to kill Emma too. Arthur didn't move. He stood his ground, hands in his pockets, and waited for her to get close enough to smell his cologne. Mrs. Dawson, he said calmly. I'm Arthur Blanchard. We've met. I know who you are. She was trembling with fury. You think your money can. I think the law can, Arthur interrupted. Your daughter died in a car accident 3 years ago. The police report, the autopsy, the toxicology, all conclusive. Vehicular accident, no foul play. Colin wasn't even in the state when it happened. He might as well have been. Donna's voice cracked. He made her miserable. She was going to leave him. Then she would have. Arthur's voice was ice. But she didn't. And she left Colin as Emma's sole guardian in her will. Not you. Not Mr. Dawson. Colin. Ernie stepped forward, his voice a low growl. Now you listen here. No. Arthur's single word cut through the air like a blade. You listen. You've interfered with a father's right to see his child. You've filed false allegations to obtain a restraining order. You've harassed hospital staff. If you come near Colin or Emma again without a valid court order, I will have you arrested for custodial interference. We're her grandparents. Donna's face was purple now. So am I. Arthur leaned in, close enough to see the burst capillaries in her eyes. The difference is, I have documentation. Legal, binding documentation that gives me authority over Emma's medical care. You have nothing but noise. A security guard approached. Mr. and Mrs. Dawson, you need to leave the pediatric wing. This isn't over, Ernie said, his hands clenched into fists. Arthur smiled then, cold and predatory. No, it isn't. Because tomorrow, I'm doing something worse. He watched them being escorted away, Donna's protests echoing down the hallway. Then he turned and walked toward Emma's room, where through the small window in the door, he could see Colin sitting beside a small bed, holding his daughter's hand, his shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Arthur stood in the hallway for a long moment, watching his son finally, touching his child again. Then he pulled out his phone and made a call. Marcus, he said when the line picked up. Marcus Lamb had been his investigator for 20 years, a former FBI agent with contacts in every agency that mattered. I need everything you can find on Ernie and Donna Dawson. Financial records, legal history, medical records if you can get them. Employment, associates, where they spend their money. I want to know what they eat for breakfast and who they're sleeping with. How deep? Marcus's voice was crisp, professional. Bottom of the ocean, Arthur said. And Marcus? I need it by morning. He ended the call and looked back through the window. Emma was awake, her small hand wrapped around Colin's finger, and even from the hallway, Arthur could see his son's face transforming with relief and love and something that looked almost like hope. Tomorrow, Arthur thought, the Dawsons would learn what happened when you tried to destroy a Blanchard. Tomorrow, they'd learn the difference between playing games and going to war. The sun hadn't risen yet when Arthur's phone buzzed on his nightstand. He'd been awake for an hour already, sitting in his study with coffee and the preliminary research Marcus had sent over at 2 a.m. The Dawsons, he was learning, were even more interesting than he'd anticipated. Talk to me, Arthur said, answering the call. I've got something. Marcus's voice carried that edge it got when he'd found blood in the water. Ernie Dawson retired from Midwest Insurance 5 years ago. Position, senior claims adjuster. Salary, $80,000 a year. Pension, $45,000 annually. And their house in Elmwood Hills is worth $1.2 million. They drive matching Mercedes. Country club membership, yacht club membership, winter home in Scottsdale. Their credit card bills last month alone were $30,000. Arthur leaned back in his leather chair. Inheritance. Donna's parents were middle-class teachers. Both deceased. Left her maybe $50,000 total. Ernie's family ran a hardware store that went under in the 90s. No inheritance there either. So, where's the money coming from? That's where it gets interesting. Marcus paused. 3 years ago, right after Kelly died, the Dawsons suddenly started spending. New house, new cars, private school tuition for Emma, which Colin didn't authorize, by the way. They pulled her from public school without his consent. Arthur felt his jaw tighten. He knew about this? He tried to fight it initially, but they convinced him it was what Kelly would have wanted. He was grieving, not thinking straight. By the time he realized what was happening, they'd already established a pattern of being Emma's primary caregivers. Custody by attrition. Exactly. They've been building a case for 3 years. Every school event, every doctor's appointment, every birthday party, they made sure they were there and documented Colin's absences, which they engineered. I'm still working on proving that part, but yeah, I've got emails from Donna to Emma's school claiming Colin was unstable and requesting they contact her for all emergencies. I've got medical records showing she's listed as the primary contact. They've been systematically erasing him from his daughter's life. Arthur stood and walked to his window. Dawn was breaking over the city, painting the skyline in shades of gold and blood. The money, Marcus. Where is it coming from? I'm digging. But there's something else you need to know. Marcus's voice went quiet. Kelly's accident. I pulled the full police report. And she was driving home from her parents' house. Had been there for dinner. The accident happened at 11:43 p.m. on a Tuesday night. She hit a tree on a straight stretch of road. Clear weather, no mechanical failure. I remember, Arthur said. The autopsy showed elevated blood alcohol. 0.12. Legally drunk. But here's the thing. The restaurant where she supposedly had dinner? I talked to the owner. He remembers that night because there was a private party. The Dawsons' 35th wedding anniversary. Kelly was there, and according to multiple witnesses, she wasn't drinking. She was the designated driver. Arthur's hand tightened on his coffee cup. Go on. The cops found an empty wine bottle in her car. Expensive stuff. The Dawsons told police she must have been drinking alone in the car before driving, that she'd been depressed. But Arthur, Marcus hesitated. The bottle was from the Dawsons' wine cellar. Part of a collection Ernie inherited. Only 3 bottles ever made it to market. The Dawsons had one. It was photographed in their home in a magazine spread 2 years before Kelly died. You're saying they gave her the bottle. I'm saying the bottle was in their possession, and then it was in her car with her blood alcohol level at 0.12, and she's dead. The medical examiner noted bruising on her arms consistent with someone grabbing her. The police wrote it off as impact injuries. Arthur closed his eyes. They killed her. I can't prove it. The case is closed. But there's a reason they wanted her dead, and I think it has to do with that money. I just need more time to find it, Arthur said. Whatever it takes. I need to know what they did and why. He ended the call and stood at the window for a long moment, watching the city wake up. Somewhere out there, Ernie and Donna Dawson were sleeping in their expensive house, dreaming their expensive dreams, thinking they'd won. Thinking they'd successfully stolen a child and gotten away with murder. They had no idea what was coming. Arthur made 3 more calls before 7 a.m. The first was to his lawyer, Sharon Davidson, the best family law attorney in the state. The second was to Blake Reed, a private investigator who specialized in financial crimes. The third was to an old friend at the FBI who owed him more favors than Arthur could count. By the time he arrived at the hospital at 8, he had the machinery of justice beginning to turn. He found Colin in Emma's room, looking more alive than he had in months. Emma was sitting up, eating breakfast, her color better. She looked up when Arthur entered, her face breaking into a smile. "Grandpa," Arthur's heart squeezed. She'd inherited Kelly's eyes, bright and curious, and Colin's dark hair. She was wearing a hospital gown with cartoon characters and 4-line in her small arm, but she was smiling. "Hello, Princess," he said, crossing to her bed. "How are you feeling?" "Better. The doctor says I can maybe go home in a few days." She looked at Colin. "I miss Daddy." "I missed you too, sweetheart," Colin said, his voice thick. Arthur noticed the change in his son immediately. Colin had showered, probably in the hospital facilities. His hair was combed, his clothes changed. The dead look in his eyes was gone, replaced by something fierce and protective. "Emma," Colin said gently, "can Grandpa and I talk in the hall for a minute?" "Okay." Emma picked up a tablet, already absorbed in a game. In the hallway, Colin turned to Arthur. "What did you do? What needed to be done?" "The Dawsons are calling my phone every 5 minutes. Threatening lawsuits, threatening to have you arrested, threatening." Colin stopped. "Dad, they're saying you've declared war." "They're correct." Arthur met his son's eyes. "I need to know something, and I need you to be honest with me. Did Kelly ever talk about her parents? About money? About anything unusual?" Colin frowned. Yes, actually. About a month before she died, she said something strange. We were arguing about money. I'd lost a big contract, and we were tight. She said her parents had offered to help, but she wouldn't take it. Said the money was dirty. Did she explain? No. I asked, but she shut down. Said it didn't matter, that we'd be fine on our own. Colin's face darkened. The night she died, she'd gone to dinner at their house. She called me around 10, said she was leaving, that she tried to talk to them about something, but it had gone badly. She sounded upset. That was the last time I heard her voice. Arthur absorbed this. What happened after her death? With the Dawsons? They were supportive. Too supportive, maybe. They insisted on planning the funeral, on helping with Emma. I was so destroyed I just let them. Then they started offering money. Said they wanted to help with Emma's school, with the house. I refused at first, but they were so insistent, and I was drowning in debt after losing the firm. Colin's voice went hollow. I took some of it. God, I took their money. That's how they got their hooks in. I realized too late. By then, they'd convinced Emma's teachers I was unreliable. They'd told her friends' parents I was struggling. They painted themselves as the stable ones, the ones who really cared. And the worst part, Colin's hands clenched. I let them. I was so broken after Kelly died that I just let them take over. Arthur gripped his son's shoulder. That ends now. I'm going to get you full custody of Emma. I'm going to expose whatever the Dawsons are hiding. And I'm going to make sure they never come near your daughter again. How? Let me worry about that. Arthur checked his watch. You focus on Emma. Be the father she needs. Let me handle the Dawsons. Colin studied him for a long moment. You're going to destroy them, aren't you? Yes. Good, Colin said quietly. Because they destroyed Kelly, and they've been trying to destroy me. It's time someone fought back. Arthur left the hospital with a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in years. The Dawsons had made a critical mistake. They'd assumed Arthur was just another old man with money, someone who could be outmaneuvered or outlasted. They didn't know he'd built his career on taking down people who thought they were untouchable. They were about to learn. Sharon Davidson's office occupied the 20th floor of a steel and glass tower downtown. Arthur had known her for 15 years, ever since she'd been a junior associate at a firm he'd worked with. She'd gone on to become one of the most feared family law attorneys in the state, with a reputation for leaving opposing counsel in ruins. She looked up when he entered, her expression already knowing. I heard about the hospital. The Dawsons have retained Frederick Jameson. Arthur raised an eyebrow. Freddie? He's still practicing. Semi-retired, but he came out of the woodwork for this one. Apparently, Donna Dawson is his wife's cousin. Sharon gestured for Arthur to sit. He filed an emergency motion this morning requesting immediate custody of Emma, pending a full hearing. He's claiming Colin is mentally unstable, potentially dangerous, and citing his financial troubles as evidence he can't care for a child. On what evidence? Affidavits from Emma's teachers saying the Dawsons are her primary caregivers. Medical records showing they've taken her to appointments. Character witnesses saying Colin has been absent and erratic. Sharon slid a folder across her desk. It's a decent case if you don't look too closely. And if you do look closely, it falls apart. They don't have legal custody. They've been operating under the assumption that Colin would just roll over. He hasn't filed a single objection in 3 years, hasn't fought any of their interference. They've mistaken his grief for weakness. He's done grieving, Arthur said. Now he's angry. Good. Angry is useful. Sharon pulled out another file. I've drafted a counter-motion. We're requesting immediate reinstatement of Colin's full parental rights, cessation of all Dawson contact with Emma except supervised visitation, and an investigation into their conduct. I'm also requesting a forensic audit of any money they've given Colin and why. How quickly can we move? Judge Morrison signed their original restraining order, but he's recused himself, apparently realized he overstepped. The case has been reassigned to Judge Carolina Boone. Arthur blinked. The nurse from last night? Different person. Judge Carolina Boone is a no-nonsense family court judge who actually follows the law. We couldn't have gotten luckier. Sharon leaned back. But Arthur, I need to know, what's your real play here? This isn't just about custody. They murdered their daughter, Arthur said flatly. Sharon's expression didn't change. Can you prove it? Not yet. But I will. Then we build 2 cases. The public one, which is about custody and protecting Emma, and the private one, which is about justice for Kelly. Sharon's eyes glinted. I'm assuming you have resources working on the second part? Multiple. Then I'll focus on the first. The hearing is scheduled for Friday, 3 days from now. Can you keep Colin clean until then? He's staying at the hospital with Emma until she's discharged. After that, he'll stay with me. Good. Keep him visible. Keep him sober. Keep him being a good father. I need the judge to see a man who's getting his life back, not someone spiraling. Sharon stood. And Arthur? Whatever else you're planning, keep it off my books. Always do. Outside, Arthur called Blake Reed. The investigator answered on the first ring. I've got a trail, Blake said without preamble. Ernie Dawson had a second job for the last 10 years of his career. Consulting work for a company called Midwest Settlement Group. They specialize in structured settlements, helping people who win lawsuits manage their payouts. And 3 years ago, one of their clients was a woman named Rosalie Swanson, won a medical malpractice suit for $8 million. She opted for a 30-year structured payout. Ernie Dawson was her advisor. Arthur felt the pieces clicking together. He stole from her. Can't prove it yet, but here's what I know. Rosalie died 2 years ago. Natural causes, cancer. But her settlement should have gone to her estate. Instead, it disappeared. The company claims it was paid out correctly, but the records are a mess. How much are we talking? If Ernie was skimming? Could be millions. The monthly payments alone were $20,000. If he redirected even a portion. Blake paused. I think Kelly found out. I think that's what she meant by dirty money. And they killed her to keep her quiet. It's a theory, but I need access to the Dawsons' financial records to prove it. Real access, not just what I can pull from public databases. Arthur thought for a moment. How illegal are we talking? Federal crime illegal. Bank fraud, wire fraud, possibly murder. If we pursue this officially, it could take years and might not stick. And unofficially, Blake's voice went quiet. I know people who can get into any system. But if we're caught, we're both going to prison. Arthur looked out at the city, thinking about his granddaughter lying in that hospital bed, thinking about his son's hollow eyes, thinking about Kelly's funeral where the Dawsons had cried crocodile tears while planning their next move. Do it, he said. Get me everything. I'll take the risk. I'll need 48 hours. You have 24. Arthur spent the rest of the day making moves. He visited 3 banks, 2 law firms, and one very exclusive private club where he met with a man named Lewis Hammond, who'd once been the state's attorney general and now made his living making problems disappear. The Dawsons, Lewis said over whiskey in a private room, are small-time criminals playing a big game. But they're sloppy. If half of what you've told me is true, they've left evidence everywhere. I need it found. I can do better than that. Lewis swirled his drink. I can make sure that when the evidence surfaces, it comes from the right sources. Law enforcement, regulatory agencies, the IRS. If you want them destroyed, Arthur, they need to go down for real crimes through real channels. Anything else is just revenge. I want both, Arthur said. I want them destroyed, and I want it legal. Lewis smiled. That's why you called me. Give me 3 days. You have 2. That night, Arthur returned to the hospital. He found Colin and Emma watching a movie together, Emma's head resting on Colin's shoulder. The sight made Arthur's throat tight. Colin looked up, and Arthur gestured to the hallway. Tomorrow, Arthur said quietly. Sharon is filing our countermotion. The hearing is Friday. Between now and then, you don't leave Emma's side. You're a model father. You're stable, loving, present. Understand. What are you going to do? I'm going to dismantle the Dawsons piece by piece. Arthur met his son's eyes. But I need you to trust me. Some of what happens will seem harsh. Some of it might seem cruel. But everything I do is to protect you and Emma. Colin nodded slowly. Do what you have to do, Dad. Just end this. I will. Arthur was halfway to his car when his phone rang. Marcus, I've got something big, the investigator said. Kelly's phone records from the night she died. I finally got them unsealed. And she made 3 calls after leaving her parents' house. 1 to Colin, 1 to 911, but she hung up before it connected, and 1 to a law office. Arthur's pulse quickened. Which one? Sharon Davidson's firm. Left a voicemail at 10:47 p.m. said she needed to talk about her parents, that she'd discovered something illegal, that she was scared. Marcus paused. The police never pulled that voicemail. It's still in the system. Send me the file. Already done. Arthur, if she was trying to report her parents, and they found out, then they had motive for murder, Arthur finished. Good work, Marcus. He sat in his car for a long moment, listening to the voicemail Marcus had sent. Kelly's voice, young and frightened. Ms. Davidson, this is Kelly Blanchard. I'm calling because I think my parents have done something illegal. I found documents in their house, bank statements, and I think they've been stealing money. I don't know what to do. I'm scared they'll hurt someone if I report them. Please call me back. I need legal advice. The timestamp, 10:47 p.m. The accident, 11:43 p.m. 56 minutes. 56 minutes between Kelly discovering the truth and her death. Arthur's hands clenched on the steering wheel. The Dawsons hadn't just killed their daughter. They'd murdered her to cover their crimes, then systematically destroyed Colin and tried to steal Emma to maintain their comfortable life built on stolen money and lies. He pulled out his phone and made one final call. Donna Dawson, he said when she answered, her voice sharp with suspicion. You, she spat. You think you've won something? We'll see you in court, Mr. Blanchard. We'll see how your money holds up against. I found the voicemail, Arthur said quietly. Silence. I know what Kelly discovered. I know about the settlement fraud. I know about Rosalie Swanson. And I know you killed your daughter to keep her quiet. You're insane. But Donna's voice wavered. Tomorrow morning, I'm giving everything to the FBI. By tomorrow afternoon, you'll be under investigation for fraud, embezzlement, and murder. By Friday, you'll be arrested. And Emma? Arthur's voice went cold. You'll never see her again. Not through glass, not in photographs, not in your nightmares. You're done, Donna. You're finished. I just wanted you to know it was me. He hung up before she could respond. Let them spend tonight afraid. Let them understand what was coming. Tomorrow, the real work began. Blake Reed's office was in a converted warehouse in the industrial district, the kind of place that didn't advertise its services. Arthur arrived at dawn, entering through an unmarked door that required 3 separate security checks. Inside, Blake sat surrounded by computer monitors, his fingers flying across keyboards. Tell me you have something, Arthur said. Blake didn't look up. I have everything. Question is whether you're ready to use it. He pulled up a screen showing a maze of financial transactions. Ernie Dawson didn't just steal from Rosalie Swanson. She was one of 7 clients he defrauded over a 10-year period. Total amount stolen, approximately $14 million. Arthur leaned forward. How did he do it? Structured settlements get paid out over time. Ernie would set up the payments. but then create shell corporations to intercept a percentage. The clients would get most of their money, so they didn't notice the missing amounts. He'd forge documents, manipulate the accounting, and pocket the difference. Small amounts over many years. And Midwest Settlement Group. They're culpable, but not criminally so. Ernie exploited gaps in their oversight. They're incompetent, not malicious. Blake pulled up another screen. But here's where it gets interesting. Donna knew everything. She's a co-signer on the Shell Corporation accounts. She helped create the fake documentation. This wasn't Ernie going rogue. It was a partnership. Kelly found the documents. More than that, Blake pulled up scanned images. These are from Kelly's personal email account. She'd photographed bank statements and sent them to herself. Look at the day she died. She'd been in their home office, found the evidence, and documented it. Then she called a lawyer. Arthur studied the photographs. Detailed bank records showing millions flowing through accounts tied to the Dawsons. This is enough to prosecute. It's enough to put them away for 20 years minimum. But there's more. Blake's expression went grim. Kelly's blood alcohol level the night she died. 0.12. But her toxicology also showed high levels of a sedative, Rohypnol. The medical examiner noted it, but attributed it to possible prescription use. Kelly didn't have a prescription. They drugged her. Slipped it into her drink at dinner, probably. Waited for it to take effect, then got her into her car. The alcohol bottle was window dressing. They wanted it to look like she was drunk driving. The sedative would have made her drowsy, impaired her judgment. She might not have even realized what was happening before she crashed. Arthur felt cold fury settle into his bones. Can we prove it? Not in court. Too much time has passed. But we can prove the financial crimes, and we can strongly suggest the murder. Once the FBI starts investigating, they'll dig deeper than we can. Blake turned to face Arthur. But here's the thing. If we go to the FBI now, it becomes their case. They'll move at their own pace. Could take months or years. The Dawsons might flee. They might destroy evidence. They might hurt someone else. What's the alternative? Blake's smile was cold. We make sure they can't run. We make sure everyone knows what they did. We destroy them publicly before the law destroys them privately. Arthur considered this. I'm listening. The custody hearing is tomorrow. Sharon gets you legal custody of Emma, severs the Dawsons' access. That's your immediate goal. But imagine if, during that hearing, evidence of their crimes just happened to surface. If the judge learned they're under federal investigation. If the media learned about the fraud and the suspicious death. You're talking about leaking the evidence. I'm talking about giving the FBI no choice but to move immediately. If this becomes a public scandal, they'll have to act fast. And the Dawsons won't be able to hide. Blake pulled up a final screen. I've already drafted the packages. Every major news outlet in the state. Every regulatory agency. Every law enforcement division that might have jurisdiction. All I need is your go-ahead, and by tomorrow morning, this will be everywhere. Arthur thought about Emma, about Colin, about Kelly's frightened voice on that voicemail. He thought about justice, about revenge, about the line between them. Do it, he said. But time it for after the hearing starts. I want them to walk into that courtroom thinking they still have a chance. I want them to see it all fall apart in real time. Blake nodded. Consider it done. Arthur left the office as the sun rose over the city. He had one more move to make before the hearing, one more piece to set in place. He drove to the Dawsons' house in Elmwood Hills, a sprawling McMansion with perfect landscaping and triple-car garage. The neighborhood was waking up, joggers passing by, sprinklers hissing on manicured lawns. Arthur parked across the street and waited. At 7:30, Ernie Dawson emerged, dressed in an expensive suit, heading for his Mercedes. Arthur got out of his car and walked across the street. Mr. Dawson. Ernie turned, his face flushing red when he recognized Arthur. You're not supposed to be here. I could call the police. And say what? I'm standing on a public street. Arthur stopped a few feet away. I wanted to talk to you man to man before tomorrow's hearing. There's nothing to talk about. Ernie's hands clenched. You're going to lose. Emma belongs with us. Colin is a failure, and you're a bully with money. Arthur smiled. Is that what you tell yourself? That you're doing this for Emma? That you're the good guys? We are the good guys. We've been raising that girl while Colin wallowed in self-pity. We've given her stability, a good home, a future. On stolen money. Ernie's face went white. I don't know what you're. Rosalie Swanson. Jonathan Wiggins. Cecilia McLaughlin. Should I keep going? Arthur watched Ernie's expression crumble. $14 million over 10 years. You thought you were clever. You thought no one would notice. But your daughter noticed. And you killed her for it. That was an accident. Ernie's voice was barely a whisper. She called a lawyer after finding your records. 56 minutes later, she was dead with rohypnol in her system. That's not an accident. That's murder. Ernie looked around wildly, as if checking for witnesses. You can't prove anything. I don't have to prove it. The FBI will. Arthur stepped closer. Tomorrow, during the hearing, every news outlet in the state is going to run stories about your fraud. Every law enforcement agency is going to receive evidence of your crimes. By noon, you'll be arrested. By evening, you'll be famous. The couple who stole millions and murdered their own daughter to cover it up. No. Ernie's legs seemed to give out. He grabbed his car for support. No, you can't do this. We'll give the money back. We'll disappear. Just let us. Let you what? Keep Emma? Keep living your comfortable life. Arthur's voice was steel. You destroyed my son. You stole his daughter. You murdered his wife. There's no deal here, Ernie. There's no negotiation. There's only consequences. Please. Ernie was actually crying now. Donna will go to prison. She's not strong enough for that. It'll kill her. Should have thought of that before you killed Kelly. Arthur turned and walked back to his car, leaving Ernie Dawson sobbing against his Mercedes. The rest of the day passed in preparation. Sharon refined her arguments. Marcus compiled the final evidence packages. Blake set up the automated releases, timed to go live at 10 a.m., exactly when the custody hearing was scheduled to begin. That evening, Arthur visited Colin and Emma at the hospital. Emma was being discharged the next morning, healthy enough to go home. Colin looked better than Arthur had seen him in years. Clean, focused, present. Tomorrow, Colin said, this all ends. Tomorrow it ends, Arthur confirmed. One way or another. I've been thinking about Kelly, Colin said quietly. About how I let her down. How I didn't protect her from them. You couldn't have known. I should have. Colin's jaw clenched. She tried to tell me something was wrong. She was scared of them toward the end. I thought she was just stressed about money. I didn't listen. Then honor her memory by being there for Emma now. By being the father she needs. Colin nodded. I will. I promise. Arthur left them together, father and daughter, and drove home through the dark city streets. Tomorrow would be the culmination of everything he'd built, every move he'd made. Tomorrow, the Dawsons would face justice. He poured himself a whiskey and sat in his study, looking at a photograph of Kelly from happier times, her wedding day, laughing with Colin, young and alive and full of hope. I'm sorry I couldn't save you, he said to the photograph. But I can save your daughter. And I can make them pay. His phone buzzed. Marcus. The FBI just called me, the investigator said. Someone tipped them off about the Dawsons. They're opening an official investigation as of tomorrow morning. Arthur smiled. Perfect timing. One more thing, Marcus said. I tracked down the responding officer from Kelly's accident. Retired now. I told him what we found. He remembers that night. Said something always bothered him about the scene, but his superiors pushed for a quick closure. He's willing to testify if it comes to that. Excellent work, Marcus. Arthur ended the call and raised his glass to the photograph. Justice is coming, Kelly, he said softly. I promise you that. Tomorrow, the Dawsons would walk into that courtroom expecting a simple custody fight. Instead, they'd walk into their own destruction, carefully orchestrated and absolutely inevitable. Arthur Blanchard had spent his career destroying people who thought they were above the law. The Dawsons were about to learn they'd picked the wrong family to destroy. The courtroom was packed. Arthur arrived early, taking his seat behind Sharon Davidson at the plaintiff's table. Colin sat beside him, wearing a suit Arthur had bought him, looking every inch the responsible father he'd always been beneath the grief. Across the aisle, the Dawsons sat with Frederick Jameson, Donna's face tight with barely controlled rage, Ernie looking like he hadn't slept. Judge Carolina Boone entered at precisely 10 a.m., her expression stern. She was a woman in her late 50s with steel gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. We're here for the matter of custody of Emma Blanchard, she began. Mr. Jameson, you filed for emergency custody on behalf of the maternal grandparents. Ms. Davidson, you filed a countermotion on behalf of the father. Let's begin with. Her bailiff leaned in, whispering something. Judge Boone's expression shifted. I'm told there's been a development, she said. Mr. Jameson, Are your clients under federal investigation? Jameson shot to his feet. Your Honor, I have no knowledge of. The courtroom doors opened. Two FBI agents entered, flashing badges. Ernie and Donna Dawson, the lead agent said. We have a warrant for your arrest on charges of wire fraud, mail fraud, and conspiracy to commit fraud. You have the right to remain silent. The courtroom erupted. Donna screamed, trying to lunge at Colin. Ernie simply sat down, his face gray. Frederick Jameson looked like he'd been hit with a hammer. Judge Boone's gavel cracked like a gunshot. Order. Order in this court. As the agents handcuffed the Dawsons, Sharon stood smoothly. Your Honor, in light of this development, I move for immediate dismissal of the Dawsons' custody petition and full restoration of Mr. Colin Blanchard's parental rights. Granted, Judge Boone said immediately. Mr. Blanchard, your daughter is in your sole custody. The restraining order is dissolved. This case is closed. As the Dawsons were led away, Donna's eyes found Arthur's. The hatred there was pure, but beneath it was something else, fear. She knew this was only the beginning. Outside the courtroom, reporters swarmed. Blake had timed it perfectly. Every major outlet was running the story. Local couple arrested in multi-million-dollar fraud scheme. Questions surround death of daughter who may have discovered crime. The coverage was everywhere, relentless, damning. Sharon pulled Arthur aside. The FBI agent told me something interesting. They've been building this case for weeks. Apparently, an anonymous source provided them with extensive documentation. Arthur said nothing. This anonymous source also helped them discover evidence suggesting Kelly Dawson's death may not have been accidental. They're reopening the investigation. Sharon's eyes gleamed. Whoever this source is, they're very thorough. Justice has a way of finding the guilty, Arthur said. Colin emerged from the courthouse, Emma holding his hand. She looked confused by all the commotion, but she was smiling, safe with her father. Dad, Colin said, his voice breaking. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, Arthur said. This is just the beginning. The trial will take months. The Dawsons will fight every step. Let them fight, Colin said. They've already lost. The trial became a media sensation. Over the following months, the evidence mounted. Forensic accountants traced every stolen dollar. Victims came forward, families who'd been defrauded, their settlements siphoned away by the Dawsons' greed. The FBI's investigation into Kelly's death uncovered witnesses who'd seen her arguing with her parents that night, who'd heard Donna say that Kelly was going to ruin everything. The medical examiner's report was re-examined. The rohypnol, the timing, the suspicious circumstances, all pointed toward foul play. While murder charges were never filed due to insufficient evidence, the implication hung over the trial like a storm cloud. Ernie Dawson broke first. Facing overwhelming evidence, he took a plea deal, 20 years in federal prison in exchange for testifying against Donna. His testimony was devastating. He described how they'd stolen from vulnerable people for years, how Donna had been the architect of the scheme, how they'd lived a lie built on others' suffering. And he admitted what happened the night Kelly died. She found the documents. Ernie testified, his voice hollow. She confronted us. Said she was going to the police. Donna panicked. She put something in Kelly's wine, said it would just calm her down, make her sleepy, so we could talk sense into her. But Kelly left before it fully kicked in. We tried to stop her, but she got in her car. We didn't mean for her to crash. We couldn't let her turn us in. The courtroom was silent as he spoke. Colin sat rigid, tears streaming down his face. Arthur kept his hand on his son's shoulder, steady, present. Donna Dawson showed no remorse. Even as the evidence destroyed her, even as victims testified about their ruined lives, she maintained that she'd done nothing wrong, that the money was deserved, that Kelly had been ungrateful, that Colin had stolen Emma from them. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. Donna received 25 years. Ernie got his 20. Both would serve their sentences in different facilities, separated forever. The stolen money was recovered and returned to the victims. The Dawsons' assets were seized, the house, the cars, every luxury purchased with stolen funds. It all went back to the people they destroyed. 6 months after the trial ended, Arthur sat in his backyard watching Colin and Emma play. Colin had rebuilt his architectural firm, landing several major contracts. Emma was thriving, back in public school, surrounded by friends. The haunted look had left his son's eyes, replaced by something Arthur hadn't seen in years: peace. Sharon Davidson joined him on the patio, accepting the glass of wine he offered. The Bar Association finished their investigation into Frederick Jameson, she said. He's been disbarred for failing to properly vet his clients and for filing motions based on fraudulent information. Apparently, the Dawsons had promised him a cut of their money if he helped them get custody of Emma. Another corrupt piece removed from the board. You sound satisfied. I am. Arthur sipped his wine. Justice was served. The guilty were punished. My family is whole again. Your family is whole because you dismantled two people's lives with surgical precision. Sharon studied him. You don't feel guilty about that? Should I? They murdered their daughter. They tried to steal my granddaughter. They destroyed my son. Arthur met her eyes. I didn't destroy them, Sharon. I exposed them. Everything that happened to them, they earned. Some would say you went too far. Some didn't watch their son nearly drink himself to death because he was being systematically isolated from his child. Some didn't listen to their daughter-in-law's terrified voicemail from the night she died. Arthur's voice was steel. I did what needed to be done. I'd do it again, without hesitation. Sharon nodded slowly. For what it's worth, I agree. The Dawsons deserved everything they got. She left shortly after. Arthur remained on the patio, watching his family, feeling the weight of the past months settle into satisfaction. His phone rang. Marcus. Just closing out some loose ends, the investigator said. Thought you'd want to know. The Midwest Settlement Group settled out of court with all the victims. They're paying full restitution on top of what was recovered. And they've implemented new oversight procedures. This won't happen again. Good. Also, that cop from Kelly's accident, he's written a formal letter acknowledging the investigation should have been more thorough. It's in the official record now. Kelly's death certificate has been amended to note suspicious circumstances. She deserved that much, Arthur said quietly. She deserved justice. And thanks to you, she got it. Marcus paused. You did a good thing here, Arthur. A hard thing, but a good thing. After the call ended, Colin approached, Emma having run off to play with a neighbor's dog. I've been thinking about something, Colin said. About Kelly. About what she tried to do that night. What about it? She tried to stop them. Even knowing it would destroy her family, that it would hurt us financially, she tried to do the right thing. That's who she was. Colin's voice was thick with emotion. I wish I'd been strong enough to see what was happening. To protect her better. You were grieving. They took advantage of that. Still, I should have fought harder. Colin looked at his daughter, playing in the fading light. But I'm fighting now. For Emma. For Kelly's memory. And I'm never stopping. Arthur gripped his son's shoulder. You're a good father, Colin. Better than I was. You saved us, Dad. You saved Emma, and you saved me. I'll never be able to repay that. You don't need to repay it. You just need to be happy. That's all I've ever wanted. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching Emma laugh and play, safe and loved and free from the shadow of people who'd tried to destroy her family. 1 year later, Arthur received a letter. Prison mail, from Ernie Dawson. He almost threw it away unopened, but curiosity won out. The letter was short. Mr. Blanchard, I know you won't forgive me. I don't deserve forgiveness. But I wanted you to know that I think about Kelly every day. About what we did to her. To your son. To Emma. I was weak. I let Donna convince me the money didn't matter, that the people we stole from wouldn't miss it. I let her convince me that Kelly was being dramatic that night, that the sedative was harmless. I was a coward, and I've paid for it. But you should know, Donna still doesn't think she did anything wrong. Even here, even now, she tells anyone who will listen that she was the victim, that you framed her, that Kelly was ungrateful and deserved what happened. I thought you should know what kind of person she really is. Probably you already knew. I don't expect anything from you. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. For whatever that's worth. Ernie Dawson. Arthur read the letter twice, then burned it in his fireplace. Sorry wasn't enough. Sorry would never be enough. But at least one of them had the decency to feel remorse. Donna, though, Donna remained unrepentant. That was fine. She had 25 years to think about her choices. 25 years to understand what she'd lost. 25 years to be exactly what she deserved to be, forgotten and alone. 2 years after the trial, Emma's 8th grade teacher called Colin to say she'd written an essay about her family. Colin brought it home and showed it to Arthur. The essay was titled My Heroes. When I was little, my mom died in a car accident. I don't remember much about her, but my dad says she was brave and kind and always tried to do the right thing. After she died, things got really hard. My dad was sad, and my mom's parents tried to take me away from him. But then my grandpa stepped in. Grandpa Arthur is the strongest person I know. He's smart and tough, and he never gives up. When bad people try to hurt my family, he stopped them. He made sure I could stay with my dad, where I belong. My dad is my other hero. He never stopped fighting for me, even when things were really hard. He showed me that being strong doesn't mean you don't get sad or scared. It means you keep going anyway. I'm lucky to have them both. My mom would be proud of them, I think. I know I am. Arthur read the essay 3 times, something tight and warm expanding in his chest. This was what it had all been for. Not revenge, not punishment, but protection. Family. Love. Colin was thriving now. His firm had become one of the most respected in the state. He'd even started dating again, carefully, with Emma's approval. The shadow of Kelly's death would always be there, but it no longer consumed him. Emma was happy, healthy, surrounded by people who loved her and put her first. She played soccer, excelled in school, had friends and hobbies and a future stretching bright before her. And Arthur had his family back. Whole, healed, safe. 5 years after the Dawsons' conviction, Arthur received news that Donna had died in prison. A heart attack, sudden and massive. She was 73. He felt nothing when he heard. No satisfaction, no sorrow, no closure. She was simply gone, erased from the world like she'd tried to erase his family. Ernie remained in prison. Arthur never responded to his letters, but Marcus kept tabs on him. He'd become a model prisoner, teaching financial literacy classes to other inmates, trying to atone in whatever small ways he could. He'd die in prison. His health was failing, but at least he'd die with some measure of self-awareness. Colin didn't attend Donna's funeral. Neither did Arthur. Neither did Emma, now 13 and thriving in high school. The Dawsons had become a footnote in their history, a dark chapter that was closed and locked. The family they'd tried to destroy had not only survived, but flourished. On Emma's 18th birthday, Colin gave her a letter. Kelly had written it years before her death, to be given to Emma when she became an adult. Emma read it privately, then came to Arthur's house with tears streaming down her face. She knew, Emma said, clutching the letter. Mom knew her parents were bad people. She wrote about wanting to protect me from them, about making sure I'd be safe with Dad. She said if anything happened to her, I should trust you, Grandpa, that you'd take care of us. Arthur held his granddaughter as she cried. This young woman who carried Kelly's spirit and Colin's strength in her own fierce heart. She was right, Emma said finally. You did take care of us. You saved us. Your mother saved you, Arthur said gently. She tried to stop them. She fought for what was right. I just finished what she started. Emma pulled back, wiping her eyes. I want to do something. For Mom. Something that matters. What did you have in mind? I want to study law. I want to help people like us. Families being torn apart by bad people. I want to fight for them like you fought for us. Her eyes were fierce. I want to make her proud. Arthur felt his throat tighten. She's already proud of you. And so am I. 10 years after it all began, Arthur Blanchard sat in a courtroom watching his granddaughter argue her first case. Emma Blanchard, now 27 and a rising star at Sharon Davidson's firm, stood before the judge with confidence and passion, defending a father's custody rights against overreaching grandparents. The case was heartbreakingly familiar. The arguments, the manipulation, the attempts to erase a parent from their child's life. But this time, Emma was there to stop it. Armed with the law, with evidence, with the iron determination that ran in her blood. She won. As the judge ruled in her client's favor, Emma's eyes found Arthur's in the gallery. She smiled, and in that smile, Arthur saw 3 generations. Kelly's courage, Colin's resilience, and Emma's own fierce light. Justice, Arthur thought, wasn't just about punishment. It was about protection. It was about ensuring that good people could live without fear, that bad people faced consequences, that families could heal. He'd spent his whole career fighting for justice in courtrooms and boardrooms. But the most important fight of his life had been for his family, for his son, his granddaughter, and the memory of the young woman who'd tried to do the right thing and paid for it with her life. The Dawsons were gone now, Donna dead, Ernie dying, their legacy nothing but cautionary tales and sealed court records. But the Blanchards remained, stronger than ever, bound by love and loss and the unbreakable determination to protect each other. Colin approached, now 50 and distinguished, his architectural firm one of the most successful in the region. He clapped Arthur on the shoulder. "She's something, isn't she?" Colin said, watching Emma speak with her client. "She's a Blanchard," Arthur replied. "Strong, smart, and absolutely relentless when protecting the people she loves. Like someone else I know," Colin said with a slight smile. They watched Emma together, this young woman who'd been through so much but had emerged whole and fierce and good. She was their victory, not over the Dawsons, but over everything the Dawsons had tried to do. Every lie they'd told, every manipulation they'd attempted, every cruelty they'd inflicted. All of it had failed. The Blanchards had won, and they would keep winning generation after generation, because that's what families did when they loved each other fiercely and fought for each other without hesitation. Arthur Blanchard was 82 years old. He'd built empires and torn them down. He'd won impossible cases and made powerful enemies. He'd lost his wife and nearly lost his son. But sitting in that courtroom, watching his granddaughter be the warrior her mother had tried to be, he felt something he hadn't felt in years. Complete and total peace. Justice, he realized, wasn't just about the courtroom. It wasn't just about revenge or punishment or even the law. Justice was about making sure the next generation could stand tall, could fight for what was right, could protect the vulnerable without fear. Justice was Emma Blanchard, 27 years old and unstoppable, carrying her mother's courage and her grandfather's strength into a future where bad people would face her in court and lose. Justice was family, whole and healed and unbroken. Justice, Arthur thought with satisfaction, was finally done. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.